I had to write everything. Okay, should I start that again or no? Okay, all right, so next we're gonna do the pledge now. Can everyone please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to take a moment of silence for our Eunice. I would also like Joe or Tony Malera, who's coming up, to read our mission statement from the Human Relations Commission, please. Tony, thank you.
Sayreville Human Relations Commission mission statement. Where there is hatred, may we bring love. Where there is pain, may we bring healing. Where there is darkness, may we bring light. Where there is despair, may we bring hope. Where there is discord, may we bring harmony. Where there is strife, may we bring peace. Make this a better world and make it begin with us.
Next, I'd like to introduce our speaker. His name is Jarrett Lampkin, and I have no words to describe him. He'll have to tell everybody about himself. Come up here, sweetie. He's the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Mindy. Appreciate you. Met your husband of 43 years, 46 years. That's really awesome. It's a secret. I apologize. Well, it's on. It's public now. It's public. All right. Well, my name is Jarrett Lampkin. I am honored to be here. It's definitely a privilege. So today I didn't want to bore everybody with a long lecture of African American Heritage Month. Or I mean, not that you would be bored, but I wanted to kind of keep it somewhat informal, and then maybe at the end a bit interactive. So I was born and raised in Lakewood, New Jersey. Currently, I reside in Old Bridge. I'm a proud father of a 5th grader, Miss Eva Jane Lampkin. If you out there, hey, lady. So to start, I received my undergraduate degree from Montclair State University. I had a minor in African American Studies and a major in sociology. After that, I went on to go to St. Peter's College. I got my first grad degree in education with a concentration in education, in administration and supervision. And then by Ms. Donna Jakubik coming into my classroom, I was able to go on to Rutgers to get a master's degree in math education. So, and now I am a school teacher. This is my 18th year teaching in Sayreville Middle School. Thank you. And by far, that is my greatest accomplishment. I really am super grateful. The 18 years have flew by, and that sort of thing. And I love being a teacher, a school teacher in Sayreville. So today, again, I'll just want to chat with you just for a little bit, and then once we finish chatting, I have like a little demonstration, and then if we have time, we could take some questions and we could have some dialogue. So I grew up in Lakewood. Now my journey starts there. My journey starts on 141 Martin Luther King Drive. Right, 141 Martin Luther King. Now most people may say, all right, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Right. He was most iconic for nonviolent, right? He was a love dealer. He was the most inclusive American, and that sort of thing. We celebrate him every January, right? But where I grew up at was in stark contrast to the principles and beliefs of Dr. Martin Luther King, unfortunately. unfortunately, the time and era I grew up on Martin Luther King, it was unfortunately drug ridden. It was extremely violent. Um, I think like crack cocaine was like really prevalent in my neighborhood. I could go outside and see crack vials on my lawn. Um, I grew up in an atypical family structure where I was at. So fortunately, I had a mother and a father with me, and by the grace of God, I think that that's what kept me out of a bunch of stuff that my friends got into. Um, but no one else. Rarely, I don't. I don't like. As I was thinking, I don't think of any other friend that had a father figure in that particular area. So it's really with this type of backdrop that I kind of started off with and started from. Um, and I'll go back to a nuance of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. But anyway, it's again, it's against that backdrop that that communities like the one that I grew up in, call for the need of role models, standard bearers, and notable figures to point to encourage their children, their kids, that if they can do it, then you can do it also. And not only can you do it also, you have a responsibility to do and go forth. Um, so there wasn't a lot of role models, but again, that was the mindset, right? That we have to have a standard bearer or notable people to point to, because what we saw was, desperation, um, discord, and things like that. Paul G. All right. Just a little bit about high school. In high school, I played basketball. Um, I was on varsity since sophomore year. I enjoyed that type of 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 time in my life. But also in high school, I had other extracurricular activities where I was like a president of two different clubs. But then outside of school, and this is sort of where the journey of African American, that type of desire to learn more started. Um, my parents, they introduced me to a program or a group called ASA. So ASA stands for African American Cultural Experience Association. And I think without the program ASA, I do not believe I would have a knowledge of my people, my people's beauty, and my own self-worth. I really feel that ASA was a big part of that, and that sort of thing. So I could recall going on field trips to African festivals and other cultural celebrations when I was high school age. We would go to Brooklyn, we would go to Harlem, we would go to, Philly, and that sort of thing. And I can recall the various foods I would taste, the unique scents I would smell, the vibrant colors, right, that I see, the different hues of brown people that I met. And we were often, the group that I was in, um, we learned this African martial arts called Minute Netra. But anyway, we were walking into like a formation and entertain crowds with drums and African martial arts. And it gave me a sense of pride and like a glow to be a part of a legacy that didn't just start with slavery here in America, but it extended further back into the continent of Africa. And at that point, I realized that I had a sense of like true belonging, right? So in college, like I said, I majored in sociology and minored in African American studies. And in these years, I learned so much more about myself and my African people in the academic setting. I learned of the many contributions that I never knew before. And moreover, I gained a deeper understanding of African issues. And that made me a more developed person at the time. So why study history, or what's the importance of history? Well, history is obviously a record of past events, um, but you could go a little bit further. Uh, Especially learning about history of your people could teach you a little bit more about yourself. Um, and to note the change champions in your culture can help you learn more about yourself. and have other people learn more about you. So the actions of ordinary people can shape the lives of ordinary people. There was a quote that I saw that I thought was pretty neat. It says, "Knowledge of the past is a prerequisite to wisdom." Knowledge of the past is a prerequisite to wisdom. And history is a guide. Now, you could use the guide however you want to, um, but history is a guide, and everything has a history. Your ideas, sports, countries, TV shows, different wars and stuff like that. And again, they help us identify, help us define our identity, and that sort of thing. So, just a little bit about Black history, some of the early tenets of it. Now, 1926, a guy by the name of Dr. Carter G. Woodson in 1926, he started what is known as Negro History Week. And Negro History Week, he started it in February. He chose the dates of two iconic African American, people that helped African American in this country, and from their birthday. So Dr. Carter G. Woodson chose to start Negro History Week in February, on the second week of February. And it was in celebration of the birth dates of Frederick Douglass and Abraham Lincoln. Now, again, some of my nuanced history kind of goes back to that. I too celebrate a birthday, or share a birthday with Abraham Lincoln. And now, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, he was the second African American to receive a PhD from Harvard University. Who was the first? Anybody know who the first? Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm sure you probably heard of him, but he was the first to receive a PhD from Harvard University. But back in 1926, Dr. Carter G. Woodson started what is known as Negro History Week. Now, some people say, some people that I've come up with, why Black people got to have the shortest month to celebrate the history, and but it's actually because Dr. Carter G. Woodson chose that particular week, and now it's known as Black History Month. Now, when I was in school, in my field, we call it African American Heritage Month, but it's however people feel most dignified. So again, people at that time felt most dignified by being called Negro, like Afro American, then it's Black, and so forth and so on. Me personally, I feel most dignified by being called African American. I feel like that gives other people, when I tell people that, more of an understanding of who I am. I feel like since brown skinned people, African people, have spread out all throughout this world, a brown person from Puerto Rico, if they just are called Black, then that doesn't give a person a real understanding of who that person is. So if they say that they are Puerto Rican, then you know what type of food they may eat, what type of songs they may listen to, what type of parents they kind of hung around, and how they dress. So for me, I claim the whole continent of Africa, because I don't know where my people have come from directly in that country. So Negro History Week, 1926. 50 years later, Gerald Ford, he actually noted it as Black History Month. So it came to be known 50 years later in our country as in 1976 as Black History Month. And no, it's not something that's in our curriculum, that's explicitly taught in our curriculum. But in pockets, teachers are allowed to to kind of go into certain things and chit chat about it and that sort of thing. So I wanted to just make note of maybe a couple of notable people. Now, most of the time when we talk about African American history, African American Heritage Month, we kind of talk about the Rosa Parks, God bless her. We talk about Martin Luther King, God bless him, obviously, and some sort of like notable figures like that. What I tend to talk or expose students to are some of the unique figures that aren't always talked about. For instance, Mary Jackson. One of my students had had researched her, and Mary Jackson was an engineer for NASA. You might have seen the movie Hidden Figures. Phenomenal movie. I recommend everybody go see it. But she was called the human computer. The human computer, and the people that flew in that particular ship, they were like, I don't want anybody to. I'm not going up there unless she does the numbers. And then you see her like like frivolously just writing and calculating, and then she got it, and they went up and came back. But the human computer, I just thought that's fascinating. That's fascinating for a woman, a young woman, any woman, to be exposed to that type of achievement and that type of accomplishment. And then it's people like Imhotep, or like great architects like Himenu. Hopefully I said that right. That built the Great Pyramids in Egypt. So my peoples could point to that, right? Or we could all celebrate that, and I say that aliens built it, is actually people that were behind it with architectural knowledge and sense, of astronomy, mathematics, science, and like engineering, that built those things that are still standing 4,500 years later. And then we also could talk about one of the richest men in the world, Mansa Musa, and and so forth and so on. So the history and legacy is that we point back, and not just African American people. There was this quote um, by Neil deGrasse Tyson, an astrophysicist, an American astrophysicist, and he was interviewed recently by Chris Wallace, and Chris Wallace asked him like how important do you think it is for young African Americans to see your progress in America? And then Neil deGrasse Tyson said this. He said, I'm going to flip that. He said, how is it important for not only African Americans, but for other white people to see my accomplishments? And then Chris Wallace kind of paused about that. And I think that that's another important piece to African American Heritage Month. Is not only that is beneficial to African American people, even though it is, but it's important for all cultures to recognize the contributions and the great legacy of African people, wherever. And then consequently, you get a greater cultural humility for other people's contributions. So for instance, when I go into my algebra sequence in school, I always point to the father of algebra, and the father of algebra was Al-Khwarizmi, and Al-Khwarizmi was from the place in Iran, or that particular region, and students are fascinated by that because they have a default understanding. I think all of us have a default understanding of who did what and who accomplished this and who accomplished that. But if we actually point to the actual people that actually did it, they'd be like, oh, snap, I didn't know that. But again, we should all know this because there's a great legacy in every person's people group. In Mexico, we still have great pyramids there. There's contributions all over the world. And that's really the thrust of what Dr. Carter G. Woodson was talking about. That if we open up history and show that people have a meaningful legacy and a connection to the past, that it'll spur us all along to cultural humility. So when I'm in my school, and I feel like Sayreville is the most diverse school in America, just that's only my estimation, but it's super diverse and I love it. But when I'm in my school, I could talk to somebody that was born in Pakistan, and the young Pakistani student could say, you know what, I'm taking aeronautics, and I'm learning how to fly, essentially. And I could talk about, we have a dialogue, and I say, wow, you have peoples that have flown planes and different things and such and such and such and such. And then we have a cultural connection to one another. He sees me as a teacher. that's interested in his affairs, and I could validate and push him forward, and that sort of thing. And that's again, that's the spirit of learning about Negro History Week, now Black History Month, for me, African American Heritage Month. So, lastly, I did want to mention one other person that that one of my students had looked up, and he the young student was excited to kind of learn about this great inventor. So Garrett Morgan. Does anybody know Garrett Morgan? What he's notable for? Yes, yeah, like so, like the traffic light. So he was known. He was one of the inventors known for inventing the traffic light. That we and part of one that we still use today. Now, back in I believe it was 1923, he sold his patent to General Electric for $40,000. At that particular time, that was probably worth $610,000 in today's date. But then he went on to invent the gas mask and other things like that. And it's kind of cool to kind of see some of the kids' eyes light up and say, "Wow, he did that," and he, such and such. And again, you give value to people, and once you kind of learn that they are connected to a great legacy, that's the whole power of learning about history and one's own history, and not just your own history, but other people's history as well, because we live in this thing together. And again, that's the spirit of African American Heritage Month. Now, you see a bunch of equipment in front of me, and part of the flyer showed that I was a DJ. So I am a DJ, and there's a style of DJ that dates back 50 years. And one of the pioneers, right, of this style of DJing is Joseph Sadler. Remember that name? You know Joseph Sadler? Yes. So Joseph Sadler, yes. So is very important. Now, this style of DJing started almost all with him. Almost all, and every DJ that you see at this point, from this point forward, no matter what genre of music they play, almost every DJ you see playing this today, he's responsible for. And it's incredible what he did, Joseph Sadler. Now, his DJ name was Grandmaster Flash, and this all started back in the 70s, early 70s. So there wasn't always a thing called hip hop, right? Or hip hop music. But hip hop was a style of how they played the music. And I just wanted to give a little history about Joseph Sadler and some of the things that he did. So he's noted to be an incredible engineer. He calls himself a scientist, entrepreneur, DJ, extraordinaire, whatever. But he invented kind of how you see DJs play, and even the equipment that we play on, he's responsible for all that. So how did it start? So there's certain songs. So if you think about a certain song, songs are usually 3 to 5 minutes, right? Your typical song. And if you think about a song that you appreciate the most, there's a certain part in that particular song where you start to dance extra hard, or have a little more fun, or you go down a little bit further, or you twist a little bit more in that particular song. What Grandmaster Flash said was that he saw other DJs and it seemed pretty boring. They would press start. They would press start. They would play their record, pretty much from start to finish, and but it was always this small segment of the music that he said he saw people like getting down to, and he called that the get down part. So the get down part was the most dynamic part, and again, because it caused you to really boogie woogie. And so what Joseph Salish said, Jam Master Flash said, if I could extend that particular that 10-second moment and make it maybe 4 minutes where everybody's thoroughly dancing and getting down, then I got something. So he went on a quest to find not only the electronics to make this work, but he said he spent 3 years in his house as a recluse to learn this particular genre, how to play this type of music. And again, part of my success, I definitely attribute to learning history and going back, because this idea of this breakdown session, this our segment, or like this most important piece, is really what we try to highlight. So, so what happened is, usually when you have records, and my father, God bless him, my father, one of the things that my father did was he owned a record shop. So he has tons of records, still tons of records. And part of having a record is you're not supposed to touch records. So when we used to go in the basement, or touch his records, if we better not leave a fingerprint on the top of his records, right? So now that was the common thing when DJs were playing. They wouldn't touch it. They would handle this thing with care. So here I have a print. This is official too, official tissue. So here, and maybe it's not even open, but you would never even touch. You would never touch the actual record part, because that was considered taboo. But what Joseph Sadler, Grandmaster Flash, said, I have to touch this thing in order to rewind it back and get it going on this side. So he would have 2 turntables. And the Technique 1200s was the official instrument of how he was going to accomplish this. Now, yes. So it's this particular turntable right here. Now, on this particular turntable, he knew that the driver could go from start, so idle, to full speed in a certain amount of seconds, and he needed that to happen because certain drivers were a little bit too slow. But the Technique 1200 started off in a start position to a full speed position a lot faster because of the driver that it has. Then with the Technique 1200, there was a rubber piece underneath of it. Right now, there's no rubber piece, but there's this thing he called a wafer, and now we call it a slip mat. But he created this particular thing. So all Technique 1200 starts off with a rubber deck, and if you have that rubber deck on, it doesn't give you the it's too much friction to kind of rewind these records back. But he created a slip mat, which means that if you had a record and that record was spinning, I can now put my hand on this record. The platter is still spinning, but I could do a movement like this. And then what Jam Master Flash did was he learned how he could rewind a record back and then get it queued up to where he wanted to go, and then start it over, and then have the same thing going on this particular side. Because what he wanted to do was accentuate the breakdown part. So let me give you a little example of what Sadler was doing, Jam Master Jack. Now, I didn't bring two turntables because it's a lot to bring. It's heavy. So, but by modern engineering and things like that, we have stuff to mimic it. So I have a controller here. So now this is let's see. Let's reset it. All right, so now we're fortunate we don't have to bring records. I mean, yeah, a bunch of crates and records. We now have a computer to do the job for us. And now my computer is spinning. Oh man, yeah. So Anyway, so there's a song by the Sugar Hill Gang, which they are attributed to having like the first actual the first hip hop song, but it's the first commercial hip hop song that had commercial success. Um, so I guess I'm gonna have to do a hard shutdown. Let's see. Sorry about that. Okay, so I just shut it down and I restarted and stuff like that. But anyway, what I'm gonna do is show you a part of a song that you guys all know, and then rewind it to the same point where it started at, to just extend that particular breakdown session segments. And again, like I said, this is pretty much like the way that I DJ my parties now. Some people call it quick mixing, but it's really just getting to like the most important part of a song. Now, Joseph Salish said that DJs in his time were lazy. Now, you guys probably see some lazy DJing where somebody does play a song kind of from start to finish. It's not dynamic. They may be on a phone in between mixes, but the style of mixing that he did, he was always active, always active. So he'd be touching this side, getting this side queued up, and doing something over here, always active. And that's the again, the style that is now 50 years old that everybody has a part of. Okay, so let's see. All right, we up. All right, so. All right, if you guys know this song, you could get up and do the dance. You guys know this, right? So this is the best part, right? Now, there's a corny part, right? The part that's kind of corny is now from here, it's corny. Nobody really listens to this part, right? Well, Jam Master Jay was like, nah, that's corny, right? That part is like kind of trash. So what he would do was, like you said, here remix it. So people could extend this part longer, right? The tanto. And again, let's do one more. Okay, so there's one more song I want to play, and again, there's when my father used to play this song. Now this song is 6 minutes long, right? Now again, nobody wants to hear the same song for 6 minutes because that's corny, and that gets the dance floor, it gets boring at that particular point. But for me, I hear a certain part in there. I'm like, all right, let me listen to the song. But there's a certain part that sounds a little more funky than the rest of it. So check this out. So this is the song. Now, me thinking like Jam Master Flash, I would say that there's another part of it that's a little more hotter. That's the same song. Now, when I heard this part, I'm like, whoa, all right. This make you two step a little longer. And then now this is the main part. When this part would come on, you could freestyle and do whatever. Now people could do some Michael Jackson. You could do whatever you want to this part. But this was the main part. Now it goes back into horns and different things like that. This is the part, the breakdown. So the breakdown, people get a little more funky too. And this is all credited to Grandmaster Flash and Joseph Sadler. So we should all remember that name, Joseph Sadler. So not only did he really encompass how most DJs or some DJs DJ now, but also the equipment. So again, like I say, he calls himself a scientist and an engineer. So everything that I'm doing to manipulate the decks, from the slip mat underneath here to rubbing the record like this. Now for me, I don't do a lot of scratching. Some DJs, they do a lot of scratching. I don't do a lot of scratching, but to actually cue a record up, you still kind of go in timing and then release. It's the same thing with these jog wheels. They allow me to manipulate, right? And then he also had work with the crossfader. So I could be playing, I could let you guys hear a published song on this side, but with my headphones on, I could hear what's going on the next deck. And the next deck is where I'm queuing up my next song. And my next song, how I wanted to come in so it doesn't disrupt the dance floor, is I want that song to come in at the same beat, the same tempo, the same rhythm, so that people could keep doing their get down part. So as long as the get down part keeps going, the dance floor is still packed. And now we have a successful event, and Lieutenant Novak could do his thing, right? Tonto, jump on it. And then people say, you know what, that was a good time. Why? Because people are on the dance floor. And then I introduce people like my man Paul G. Pooh, what's going on, brother? so Pooh or Paul G would come alongside of me, and while I'm doing my thing on the records, he would be the MC that would engage the audience. And he would maybe see something that's going on and accentuate it. He would see Lieutenant Novak like, oh snap, he's busting it out. He would go hype that particular part out, and people would enjoy that experience. And this is how DJing has been revolutionized. And again, Joseph Sadler, he really should be recognized completely of how people DJ currently. And that sort of thing. Joseph Sadler, he is that guy, Grandmaster Flash. So with that being said, I guess we could take a few minutes of questions or comments. Anybody want to share anything? But this is history, and I feel like this is the history that kind of shaped who I am and how I do life and that sort of thing. You gonna introduce?
Oh yeah, no question about it. He told me I need you.
No way.
One of my friends, his cousin lived in the building. Him and the favorite time, they used to be upstairs just when they first started. And they used to practice all their routines and stuff up there. So that's how I DJ. First original DJ was DJ
Herc. Yeah, Herc.
Who Herc is there? After that, master. Then the African man, I don't think that's we pioneered that.
Yes.
Grandmaster Flash, and then what happened with the scratch, that was Grand with the deal.
Yes.
You
should come on up.
Yeah, come up. Yeah. No. And this, again, this is what we do. This is how we share, how we grow, how we build. And yes, Cool Herc is noted for being the official pioneer of hip hop. Is Grandmaster Flash that made it a little more sophisticated and like pioneered how we do it to this day. All right. So thank you. Yes. Thanks for sharing. Any other thought, comment? Yes.
I had the occasion to spend a lot of time in the city of Newark, and we just became very close friends with economic development for the city of Newark, Dr. Allen. And Dr. Allen, Nate Allen, he was a big proponent of the historical black colleges and contributed to that. And if you saw
See the
the
microphone? Mindy. No, Mindy's gonna bring it to you.
I got it. Me and my brace were coming. That's okay.
And when we saw the pictures of the people getting beat by the police officers in the 1960s, Dr. Allen was one of those people. And he shared with me a lot of stories about, and then he went to the Justice Department, and he investigated when they were burning down all the black colleges down south. And he became my best friend, became one of my best friends, real fine gentleman. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. And,
Awesome.
just a real great gentleman. Just wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thank you. No, thanks for sharing. Thanks for keeping it alive. All right, we got the lady in the
I
back.
just wanted to say thank you for making this so much fun and so inclusive. It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
So likewise, you're a wonderful individual, very entertaining. I am so thankful you're a teacher here in town. That is great. So, young people need somebody to look up to, somebody to be inspired by. And I see that in you for sure. So hopefully you spend a lot of time doing that with children. You see something in them and you pull it out of them even more and help them grow. Because we have a lot of better people in the world if you inspired them. I can tell. So who, maybe it's Grandmaster Flash, but who has inspired you the most in your lifetime? Who would you say?
So I'm glad you spoke about that. Now,
Thank you.
so like I said, when I grew up on 141 Martin Luther King Drive, right? And oddly enough, there are people in my community who kind of pride themselves on being able to go to any Martin Luther King they want to and kind of stand there on any Martin Luther, and they do. We wear it as a badge of honor of how tough we were, because that's where we came up from. But me learning more about African American Heritage Month and learning about Dr. Reverend Martin Luther King, there was a time when I was living in Newark. I had lived in Newark for like 6 years, and there's a bunch of things that happened in my life at that particular time. But one thing in particular, well, two things. One thing in particular was I had gotten robbed. Now I would walk around Newark by myself. I always went everywhere by myself. But people knew me. People see me around. But I had this. It's kind of silly now. I would say it's silly, but I had this like diamond chain, and I walked anywhere I wanted. And I thought I was tough, right? One, I thought I was tough, but two, everybody always showed me love. Like I always felt like people gonna show me love. So there was one day I was at this fashion show in Newark, downtown Newark, and then I wasn't feeling well, so I told my friends that I'd probably be back, but I was gonna go get some medicine. And where like the NJ Pack was, it's like a dark one-way street. Anyway, that's where I was parked. I was going down the one-way street. I heard gunshots. One of my friends had chirped me at that time. We had the Nextel phones. He had chirped me, and he asked me like where I was, and I was like because the gunshots was like prevalent. So anyway, I was like, it's nothing. People are shooting in the air. So forth and so on. So there was two guys walking next to me. So anyway, long story long. And I long story long, I got robbed, right? And like pistol whipped at gunpoint. And they was trying to get me to go inside my car and get in the trunk. And I was resistant. I was like super rebellious at that time. But anyway, again, long story long, that incident and helping out the person who actually had gotten shot, that incident, and then there was this one Martin Luther King celebration day that I recall, and I had saw his speech called that I've been to the mountaintop. And in that particular speech, at the end, like towards the end of it, he says something to the effect that that he just wanted to do God's will, and it doesn't matter to him whatever happens. He said that he wanted to live a long life, and longevity had its place. He said, but that doesn't matter to me anymore. I just want to do God's will. When he said that, I haven't heard anybody speak with that type of fervor. And he knew. So the day he gave that speech was the night before. It was April 3rd. April 4th, he got assassinated in 1968. But it's something in me that said, wow, with that type of like determination to live, that no matter what he set his purpose on, he was going to do it no matter what, even if it's going to cost him his life. I took that to heart that day, and I said, God, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it, even if you want me to die. And I cried like a baby for a long time. But at that particular point, that's what I meant. And Martin Luther King is by far one of the most influential person in Black history to me in my life. So to answer that question, I think we had one up here. But thanks for asking that.
Jared, one of the most amazing Black Americans for me. You ever heard of Henry Ossian Flipper?
No, what's
So
talk?
he was the second Black to go to West Point.
Okay.
The first Black didn't graduate. He graduated, but the amazing thing about him was his classmates, no one spoke to him for 4 years. And now today at West Point, they have a Henry Ossian Flipper Day every year.
Wow, look at that.
Imagine that, even at the middle school, the high school. Imagine going to school for 4 years and no one talked to you.
Can't. Talk about perseverance.
Yes, I want to ask you about the name Africa. Where did that name derive from?
I don't know that, sir.
Yes, I know.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Africa is really not a name, it's a European name.
Okay.
If you have Facebook, you can look up it right now. It said where the name Africa comes from. It's like a mostly like Italian name, a Roman name. And that's when they started going to Africa and enslaving us. They threw the name, they gave a name to us, but it's not an African name.
Okay.
So anybody here has a smartphone, you can look up on your smartphone.
So what would you say is the most native name of that continent?
One time used to call Kush.
Mhm.
We heard the name Kush. Since 1976, we as a group in America, we changed the name to Bilalian. Make it see it on my shirt now. Because Bilal, he was a Muezzin, he used to call it prayer in the time of Prophet Muhammad. He was a slave during that time and stuff. So basically, we changed our name to Bilalian. Most of us still call African Americans, but most us from the Islamic perspective, we call ourselves Bilalians, because he was the first one to call the prayer for the Muslims back then. He was a slave. So if you want to look at the name Africa, look on your smartphone, it'll tell you where the name came from.
Cool. Thanks for sharing.
Deb?
You did an excellent job, okay? And you are an Aquarian like myself. So we're awesome people, okay? And I'm in pain every day. Every day I'm in pain. But turn some music on, like you turned that on, and I started moving. So I forget about the pain. So it's amazing what music can do.
Yes.
So awesome job. Loved it.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, like to be honest, like music is such a blessing. It's like wow, like people hire me to entertain them with music. And it's always fascinating. I am legitimately fascinated. Like, wow, I'm getting paid to entertain people, but the most important entertainment in our country, in our world, is music. People come together. When people invite me out, and it's like a cultural experience, multi-generational, that's where I shine the most, because I could play something that everybody could like appreciate, could be drawn to, could bop to. And I really, really, really appreciate that. And again, to be a part of the most influential parts of our experience is music. And it's really cool to kind of, see people enjoy themselves from start to finish. And again, like that's the idea, of DJing. But again, knowing other people's history is so important, so valuable, again, because it, just provides so much value and worth and cultural humility. So we could talk about where we're from, and Tara Rise and I, we now been working together for maybe like 16 years. I've been at the middle school 18. She's been there with 27. Nicole Del Popolo, how are you? But yeah, we've been working together, and it's just fascinating how many culture groups come into my classroom, and like how many people we could talk to. We have people coming from all over. Like Ms. Risen was talking to this one lady. She was from Nigeria, and she talked about her life experiences before coming to America, and she's recently in the States. And again, how Ms. Reisner appreciates other people's culture, and Indian people could come into our classroom, because we have this thing called the opportunity room, where we invite anybody and everybody to come in during their lunch period to get like some work done, because we have a huge classroom. So we have computers, we have a bunch of paper, we have big spaces, we got a big like a big board to like write on. But anyway, everybody comes in, and it's so cool to just to appreciate everybody's contributions, everybody's legacy, and again, to give value to that is so important. And again, for a long time in our culture and our history, plus this is like the reason why Dr. Carter G. Woodson kind of started this, is that for a long time, not everybody's cultures were celebrated adequately. And with Black History Month, I think it's a part of us that needs to just branch out to other people's culture. So, and again, that makes us better, right? Because we're in this thing together. And it's kind of like a real blessing, to be here, to kind of celebrate stuff. So first I'm that, and then I'm a DJ, but DJing is super valuable and important too. So I just went in with that part. Okay. So let's do about another 5 minutes, and then we'll wrap things up.
I don't have a question, just a comment. Pine or Pride.
Yes.
Very proud of you, man. It was nice to walk in the door. We went to high school together.
Yeah,
I had no idea what I was walking into. But, with PMA. But it's nice. PMA. Yeah, it's nice to walk in the door and see a young person who was actually ready to pass the mic and teach others about African American history. So I just want to tell you, very proud of you.
God bless. Thank you. Thank you so much. And do you live in town?
No, Jackson.
Are you in Jackson? Okay. Oh, you work in Sayreville. Okay. All right, nice. Welcome then, man. Nice seeing you.
So you know that Tom Ross just passed away recently. So we got to go back to Lakewood. You know, so we talk offline.
I just want to say that I'm not ignorant enough to think that there's not divisiveness in our country, but I think the media makes it a lot worse. You know, I think people in general, especially in Sayreville, we get along and we want to get along, you know.
Cool.
Thank you so very much, everyone. Anyone have anything else that they would like to share?
My students over there.
Go ahead. Oh, here he is. Hold on. Here's the man. Hold on.
Yeah, I don't think I need this. I just wanted to talk about Jared for 1 second. I'm not a big fan of doing the security details at the school. It's a lot of walking. It's a lot of time on your feet. But I did one in the middle school one day, and I ran into Jared in the hallway, and we struck up a conversation. And I was so intrigued by him, and it was just really enjoyable to have a conversation with him. That when the details would come up again, I said, if it's not the middle school, I'm not doing it. And then finding out that Jared was a DJ, I ran National Night Out for the first time about 3 years ago. And Jared volunteered to help us out. It was in Kennedy Park. It's like 100 degrees, super hot. And Jared's on the ones and twos, right? And just like he talked about, Sayreville is super diverse. And, you know, it's going to be difficult. If you've ever tried to DJ, there's a lot of pressure to keep a party going. It's not an easy thing to do. I've tried it and I failed miserably. But Jared, seeing the crowd, vastly different backgrounds, he had everyone bopping. At one point, he put on like an Asian Indian hip hop song, and the entire park stopped, and everybody was like, "Oh, all right." And you know, and he makes his jokes about Lieutenant Novak because every time he does it, he gets me dancing, and that's not easy to do. But Jared, you're a fantastic human, and I just want to be you when I grow up. All right?
Well, I just wanted to say something real quick. My name is MC Pooh. My name is Paul G. And I'm his MC. Like when we do events, I am the master of ceremony. That's where the word MC comes from. So we do weddings, sweet 16s, bar mitzvahs, whatever you want, we'll do it. And we do a good job. But I just wanted to piggyback off of what young lady just said with the media. I grew up in Keyport. I'm from Brooklyn originally. I grew up in the port. We call it Keyport. And the media, that's what they do. I grew up with all type of kids, Italian, Spanish, Dominican, Black, everybody. We all grew up in the port together and went to Keyport. And people don't realize that the media stirs that up to divide us, you know, because if I like you for your personality, care what your color is. That's how I've always been. That's how my mom and dad raised me, just to like a person for who they are. If they're a jerk, right? It shouldn't matter what color jerk you are. But the color that they don't talk about that really just matters in this world is the color green. And you know what that is? The money. That's all that matters. Left wing, right wing, all they care about is that green color. And that's the truth, you know? So everybody here, let's get along. 2023, love you all.
In the House, we have Craig Coughlin, the Speaker of the House, is here today. He would like to say a couple of words. Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Thanks everybody for coming out. Thanks for letting me come by. I really do want to thank the Sayreville Human Rights Commission for putting this together tonight. It's great to come together. Look, like all of you, I'm proud of the diversity that we have in Sayreville and the rest of the district that I live in. It is our strength. It is what's best about us. It is what makes us special and unique, and we should champion every time we can. And you know, celebrating Black History Month does a few things, right? It lets us have a time to reflect on the struggles that Black Americans have experienced for too long, gives us a chance to recommit to making sure that doesn't go on forever, and mostly gets us to celebrate all the great accomplishments, which often get overlooked. and all that Black people have achieved in every area of arts and in literature and in science and all of those things. And this is a really unique way to do it, to bring together I didn't hear the whole presentation. I'm hoping I'm here for when Lieutenant Novak dances at the end, but the listening to you talk and the inspiration you have to be to those middle school guys is just remarkable. We need 1,000 more of you everywhere. So keep it up, man. But particularly at this time in Sayreville, which has really had a rough struggle in the last few weeks and needs the opportunity to heal, I can't think of a better way to do that than through having somebody here and bring music. You talked about it before. Any of us who have ever been to a wedding knows the ones that are fun, everybody's up on the floor dancing. The ones that are, you ever go to a wedding that nobody danced at? It's absolutely miserable. You keep watching the clock going, please, God, let me get the hell out of here. How long do I have to stay, right? How long is the obligatory time? So commend this, this is a different, I get to go to a lot of Black History Month celebrations around the state. This is unique. Bringing somebody in to talk and have music and to talk about the culture from that aspect is unique. It's the perfect time. It's pitch perfect time for that. It's a terrific night. Thank you all for what you've done. Keep up the great work and God bless Sayreville.
Thank you. I would also like to say one more thing before anybody's done. The NJEA has supplied us with a bunch of snacks and refreshments. Is that right? Sayreville says Sayreville
Education Association. Yes.
Mrs. Marlene, say something.
Yes. Oh,
Say hello.
I'd just like to thank everyone for coming out. The Sayreville Education Association looks for ways to be a part of the community, bring the community into the schools, as well as us coming out within the community. And we're going to support our colleagues and friends. I've known Jarrett for many years as well, and I'm very happy to be here for you. And again, the snacks are to go because you can't eat in council.
Thank you so very much. Jarrett, you want to end by saying anything? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for coming out. Thank you. God bless everyone. Thank you.